Hi guys, I'm Teresa. Welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing my July wrap-up. I'm doing my July wrap-up. It's a little bit late in coming. So guys, I did not have a good July at all. So starting off, July started off great. July 1st, I drove to Boise, Idaho to meet up with my boyfriend. And then from there, we went to Nebraska for the 4th to visit with his family. His mom's from Nebraska, and we hung out there for the 4th. I think I got home on the 14th, I think. I can't remember the exact day, but it was like about 2 weeks that I was gone. And over that time, I only actually listened to an audiobook, one audiobook, which I'll get to in a minute. And then as soon as I came home, literally the next day I woke up and I was very, very sick. I had the worst sore throat that I had since I was a kid, pretty much. I just could feel I don't know if it's my tonsils or what, but they were so swollen. Lymph nodes, tonsils, whatever they were. And it just felt like I was swallowing razor blades every time. I mean, it was so painful, and it felt like strep throat. If you ever have strep throat, you know the feeling. So I ended up going to the doctor, and they tested me for COVID. They tested me for strep, and they're like, no, you're negative on both things. It's probably just the flu. Just wanting to focus on my dog. It's probably just, a bad virus. Just rest. So about 5 days later, my sore throat was pretty much gone, but then I had a really nasty cough and an awful headache. So I had a sore throat and a fever. So it was weird because I had a sore throat, a fever, and all of the fever symptoms, chills, body aches, that kind of thing. But I didn't have any other symptoms. After the 5 days, I ended up with a really bad migraine and a really bad cough and kind of some congestion. And I was like, I'm not getting better. I'm just going to test myself again. And turns out, yep, I was positive for COVID. So I was like, great. I had been sick for pretty much all of July. I tested negative, I think on the 28th, I think. It was the first time I tested negative. So pretty much all of July was just a crapshoot for me. So I really didn't get much read at all. I only read 4 books in July, and that's my average I think is 10 a month. So it was not good for me. And if you guys want to see what I read, what I was supposed to read for my Jurassic TBR, and what I ended up reading and not reading for that, I'll link my playlist somewhere up above where you guys can go check it out. Check out my my Jurassic TBR videos if you would be so kind, if you would like. I don't know. So I'm not going to talk about that in this video or anything. If you want any information about that, go there. This is just my wrap up. So the first book I read was an audiobook, and it was on the 1st. It was when I was driving to Boise, and I was able to complete it from because it wasn't very long. So I started it when I left Portland, and by the time I got to Boise, I had finished the book. And that is The Guide by Peter Heller. This was a 5-star read for me, you guys. It was surprisingly good. I mean, I say surprisingly, I don't know, I guess not really surprisingly, because it's a nature thriller, and I really like nature and I really like thrillers. So we put the two together, and there you go. I haven't really read a whole lot of nature thrillers, so I wasn't really sure what to expect, but I really, really like this book. And I didn't realize it until after I read this. This is kind of a companion novel, or not necessarily a sequel, but it does kind of take place. It has a certain character that's dealing with certain things in his life. Well, he's dealing with grief. That's in the synopsis. He's dealing with some really severe grief from something that happened in his past. And there is a book that this author, Peter Heller, wrote, The River, and this is kind of a follow-up companion novel, I guess, a sequel, but not a sequel, because anyways, I don't know, but I still loved it. I still was able to get total enjoyment out of it, and now I really can't wait to go back and read The River, because it sounds so good. Okay, this is a heart-racing thriller about a young man who, escaping his own grief, is hired by an elite fishing lodge in Colorado, where amid the natural beauty of sun-drenched streams and forests, he uncovers a plot of shocking menace. Kingfisher Lodge, nestled in a canyon on 1.5 miles of the most private river water on the planet, is known as Billionaire's Mile, and it is locked behind a heavy gate, sandwiched between barbed wire and a meadow with signs that reads, "Don't get shot." The resort boasts boutique fishing at its finest. Safe from the viruses that have plagued America for years, Kingfisher offers a respite? What's the word? For wealthy clients. Now it also promises a second chance for Jack, a return to normalcy after a young life filled with loss. When he is assigned to guide a well-known singer, his only job is to rig her line, carry her gear, and steer her to the best trout he can find. But then a human scream pierces the night, and Jack soon realizes that this idyllic fishing lodge may merely be a cover for a far more sinister operation. A novel that is gripping as it is lyrical, frightening as it is moving, The Guide is another masterpiece from Peter Heller. Okay, so yeah, as said, he's a fishing guide in Colorado. It's really, I don't fish, so I can't, and it's fly fishing, by the way. I don't fish, so I can't really say how accurate it was as far as the depiction of fly fishing. But to me, it sounded pretty like the author did his research. Either, I don't know if he's a fly fisher himself, an outdoorsman, whatever. I don't really know much about this author. I just know he writes nature-y kind of books. So I'm guessing he's kind of an outdoorsy person, knows what he's talking about. The descriptions of the environment, though, were wonderful. It really made me feel like I was in the woods, like I was there by the river, and I could like smell and feel and hear all of the things, you know, because I love being outside. I am such an outdoorsy person. I love, like I said, I don't fish, but I do hike. I love hiking, camping, that kind of thing. And so I really felt like immersed in this world. And the way he was describing it, even though it is Colorado, there are a lot of similarities between like the Colorado wilderness and the Oregon wilderness, at least the part that I live in, like the Mount Hood forest and stuff here, a lot of similarities. And so I really felt like I was out in the woods again. And the way he described like the sights and the sounds of the river and the brook and the fish, and how like I don't know, it was just so good. I really, really enjoyed it. So that part obviously was great. But then you get to the part of where it's the mystery and it's the thriller, and there's this scream and you're like, what is happening? Because it's supposed to be this idyllic, beautiful place. But then some crazy stuff starts going down, and he starts asking questions and is immediately like shut down and like, no, don't ask any questions. So you get this sense of dread throughout the whole thing, and it just builds and builds and builds. And you feel like, for me anyways, because I've been in places like this where you do feel like you're pretty isolated from the outside world, where it's like, if something were to happen to me, there's nobody around for miles. You know, you're out in the middle of the wilderness, out in the middle of nowhere, and people at the lodge start acting weird. There's some events that are happening that you're like, what is going on? The author kind of starts alluding to things, and the character is, like I said, he's questioning stuff, but he's told not to question things. And as he gets kind of deeper into this, like, conspiracy almost, things start happening around the place, like I said, and he finds, like, there's cameras everywhere. He's like, what the heck what is this? And yeah, it's really, really good, you guys. If you are a fan of anything that has to do with kind of, like, isolated nature thriller, like, check this book out. For sure. Like I said, I felt the atmosphere. I felt the sense of dread, because again, the way that the author that described the surroundings really put me there. And I think it helps too, like I said, that I've actually been places like this. Like I've gone camping and stayed in places that you can feel quite isolated in, up in the mountains or whatever, to then have all this stuff happening, and like you're kind of stuck here and there's like no way out kind of feeling. It got my heart racing a few times, you know, and I'm driving by myself. I mean, I wasn't driving through the woods. I think if I was driving through like the forest and the woods, I would have been way more freaked out. It's definitely more like high desert, which between like here and Boise. So it wasn't as freaky, but I was like, I'm out here by myself. I mean, I got my dog and all, but like we had to stop at one point on the side, like pull off on a kind of deserted exit for Rachel had to go to the bathroom, and I'm just like, you know, listening to this like nature thriller, right? Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought that the plot moved quickly. I think it was like a little slow going at first, but it was just building of the atmosphere, building of the environment. So to me personally, I didn't mind that at all. But as you kind of get into it and get into the story, just it kind of like tumbles into this like thing, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And it's just like, I need more. And then you get to the end and you're just like, oh, what the heck? Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was great. I'm sorry if I'm not articulating my thoughts correctly. I just really like this book. Okay, and then the next book I read. So that previous book actually was for a thriller prompt. So like all the books I read actually were prompts from my address at TBR. That one was to read a thriller. This next book, I pulled a Mr. TBR card and I got book of the month. So I just had to pick any book that was book of the month. And I chose to read The Collective by Allison Galen. And this was a 5-star read, you guys. This was creepy as well. I don't know what it is about July reading creepy books, but I pretty much only read creepy books in July. Interesting. Again, you guys, I'm just going to read this off to you because I'm really bad at summarizing things. How far will a grief-stricken mother go to right a tragic wrong? Camille Gardner is grieving and angry. Oh, Camille Gardner is a grieving and angry mother who 5 years after her daughter's death is still obsessed with the privileged young man she believes to be responsible. When her rash actions draw the attention of a secret group of women, the Collective, Camille is drawn into a dark web where these mothers share their wildly different stories of loss, as well as their desires for justice in a world where privilege denies accountability. Fueled by mutual rage, the Collective members devise and act out retribution fantasies via precise, anonymous, highly coordinated revenge killings. As Camille struggles to comprehend whether this is a role-playing exercise or terrifying reality, she must decide if these women are truly avenging angels or monsters. Becoming more deeply enmeshed in the group, Camille learns the truths about the Collective and about herself that she may not survive. So yeah, it's like vigilante fantasy revenge killings of mothers taking or killing people who have killed their children and got away with it. Pretty much in the gist of it, that's what this book is about. And as you're going through, you're kind of following with this character and wondering, you know, is this just role playing or is this something more sinister, more real happening? And then if it is real, it really deals with the whole like, okay, yeah, like you need to be punished, but then you're punishing this person, but then you're also causing that same pain to happen to that person's parents, right? So say like it's a young man who caused a death, like a drunk driving accident or something, right? And he gets away, whatever. And then if we were to kill him, okay, great, now we're avenged, but now his parents have to deal with the loss of their son, right? So it's this whole psychological thing on like the vigilantism, the revenge, justice, what is justice? And at first the character is like gung-ho, like, yeah, let's go. But then as she starts thinking about it and starts thinking these through, she starts getting thoughts like that. Like, well, what about his parents? What about their family? What about like, is this really justice? Or what is this? Are we monsters or are we vengeance? Kind of thing, you know? Is that a quote from something? I don't know. But it was really, really good. And the ending, you guys, way surprised me. There are definitely foreshadowing in this book that like now that I've read it, I can like kind of think back and be like, oh my gosh, that's why this certain topic was talked about. I think this author did a very, very good job at handling the grief. I unfortunately do have a family member who was murdered. Thank the Lord her murderer was caught and is in jail, prison forever. He will never be getting out. And so I kind of could relate to this book in a way, or not to this book, but to these characters. Even though I'm not a mother of a murdered child, my aunt is a mother of a murdered child. She was my cousin. And my uncle is a father of a murdered child. And so I could see like if they were not to get justice and if they knew for a fact who it was that murdered her, but they got away scot-free, yeah, I could totally see how this book could happen and how they could feel justified in that. And it's really crazy, you guys, to really think it through and be like, oh my gosh, like where do you draw the line, right, between justice and vigilantism, and is it righteous or is it you know like all that stuff? And you really have to think about that psychological stuff that this book brings up. Definitely check out trigger warnings for this book. As you can imagine with the topic, there are some heavy things in here. Nothing is ever described in any sort of gruesome way or explicit way or anything like that, but they do touch on topics such as sexual abuse and obviously murder and that kind of thing. So just be aware going into this that there are some trigger warnings. But I mean, doesn't this like scream like your perfect like Halloween horror? Like, oh my gosh. So yeah, this was a 5-star read. And I think again, part of that is because I felt connected to these characters because I do have a relative who was murdered. And so I feel more deeply where these people are coming from. Again, even though it wasn't my daughter or my son, I can relate. And so I think that also pushed this to be a 5-star for me. And the ending, you guys, the ending is trippy. So if that sounds at all interesting, I would highly recommend this book. I've never read anything by this author before, but I definitely want to look and see if she has more works out there because, yeah, this was so good. And then the third book that I read was also, no, this one was for my own TBR, and I chose The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. So I read a bunch of thrillers in July. It was really good, actually. This I rated a 4-star, though I do have to say, if I rated my books critically, so I rate my books more on personal enjoyment. Like, how do I feel when I read it? That's kind of how I rate my books versus critically what's the word? Like diving in and seeing like the critical, like, is it written well? Does it make sense? Like analyzing, there we go, the book. I don't do that. I just go off of how I felt reading it. This was fun. I really enjoyed it. So I rated this a 4-star. If I was to rate this critically, it would probably be close. It'd probably be a 3. This is a Jane Eyre retelling. Hello, Ranger. This is a Jane Eyre retelling by, again, Rachel Hawkins, like I said. If you know the story of Jane Eyre, I think that's a lot of people's critiques with this or problems with this is like, well, it was pretty predictable. I'm like, well, yeah, if you know the story of Jane Eyre, it's a pretty good retelling, so you kind of already know what's going on in here. I mean, yeah, it's a little different. The character's a little different. It's in modern times. The situations are different. Like the way that they handled the wife upstairs part was really trippy. But it was like, yeah, if you know the original source material, it is going to be very predictable. That didn't bother me though, because going into it, I'm like, yeah, I love Jane Eyre. It's my favorite classic. So of course I know what it's about. I know the gist of it. And I was just curious, how are they going to take that story and twist it to a modern setting? And I really liked it. This says, meet Jane. Newly arrived to Birmingham, Alabama, Jane is a broke dog walker in Thornfield Estates, a gated community full of McMansions, shiny SUVs, and bored housewives. The kind of place where no one will notice if Jane lifts the discarded tchotchkes and jewelry off the side tables of her well-heeled clients. Where no one will think to ask if Jane is even her real name. Meet Eddie. Recently widowed, he has become Thornfield Estate's most mysterious resident. Ever since his wife, Bee, drowned in a boating accident with her best friend, their bodies lost to the deep, Jane can't help but see an opportunity in Eddie. Not only is he rich, brooding, and handsome, but he could offer her the kind of protection she craves. Yet, as the two fall for each other, Jane is haunted by the legend of Bee, an ambitious beauty and successful entrepreneur with a rags to riches origin story. How can she, plain Jane, ever measure up? And can Jane win Eddie's heart before her past, or his, catches up with them? With delicious suspense, incisive wit, and a fresh feminine sensibility, The Wife Upstairs flips the script on Jane Eyre in a timeless tale of forbidden romance, ill-advised attraction, and a wife who just won't stay buried. So... It's pretty much Desperate Housewives kind of situation, right? Where down in Alabama, this is totally the Southern Gothic. I do gotta say though, I didn't feel the Gothic. I wish there was more atmosphere in this book. I think that's part of why I would have rated it a 3 if I was doing it critically. It just didn't give me those vibes. I enjoyed it though. I had fun with this book, and that's I think why I rated it a 4. It was entertaining. It was a quick read. Really, it's not even that long. It's only 290 pages, so it's a pretty short book. I would definitely say this is an introductory thriller. If you are someone who is looking to get into thrillers, I would definitely pick this up. If you're a more seasoned thriller reader, you will probably be able to figure out a lot of the twists and turns pretty easily. Again, it is a Jane Eyre retelling, so you do have kind of that whole sense. but there is a twist to it. Obviously, it's, you know, the wife, and it was easy to figure out kind of the secret of like who the wife was and what had happened to the wife. It wasn't as shocking as I think people would like for me, but I'm a very seasoned thriller reader. So I guess I would just say, if you're looking for just a fun, good time, kind of rich people behaving badly, like a lot of cattiness, a lot of that Desperate Housewives situation, right? But like Southern, this would be a fun one to pick up. I'm trying to think, there may be trigger warnings in this book. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but you know, again, with any thriller, I would recommend looking that up because it's a thriller and stuff happens. So yeah, that was what I read. And then the very last book that I read, the fourth book that I read, this was to read a short book or something like that, shortest on my TBR, or no, this was to read a quick read. That's what it was. Read a quick read. I read Where the Drowned Girls Go by Shauna McGuire. This is book 7 in the Wayward Children series. This one was interesting. What I rate this? I gave this a 4-star, and it wasn't my favorite, but it wasn't my least favorite. It's really hard to talk about these books, even though they are companion novels and not like you can read them on their own. You don't have to read them in order. Basically, this is about wayward children who are kids that find a magical doorway, like a portal fantasy type of thing. They find a magical doorway, go through it. They end up in this magical world. Sometimes it's like really like full of candy and fun, and sometimes it's like Dracula and Frankenstein kind of situations. But these kids feel like this is my true home, this is where I belong. And then somehow along the way, they get kicked back into our reality and they can't cope. And all they want to do is go back to their world. And then of course, like their parents are like thinking their kids have problems because they're talking about like talking horses and stuff, you know. So they get sent to this school for wayward children, Eleanor West School for Wayward Children. And that is where majority of the books take place in the series. This one specifically though is for a different school that has a different approach, and it's way more harsh, way more rigid, way more like what happened to you in the past or that it's not real, this is the real world, get over yourself kind of thing. And one of the characters decides that she started at Eleanor West School, something happened to her, and she decides that she wants to go to this school to forget. And so it's kind of her journey. She meets up with a couple other characters, and there's some stuff that's going on in this school that you're like, seems kind of sinister. Like, what's going on here? Why are these things happening? And she is trying to deal with the stuff from her past while figuring out how to fit into this school, while also trying to figure out what's going on at this school. Why are these certain things feel off? I did really enjoy it. It was a fun read. I've loved all these books in this series. This is definitely an adult series though, so like when I first read Every Heart's a Doorway, I thought it was like a YA, and then there was some language in there and I was like, what? I was like, oh no, it's adult. So, you know, it has adult themes and that kind of stuff. I really truly enjoy them. They are a lot of fun. Sorry if you can hear a dog barking. That's not my dog, it's a neighbor's dog. I think it's actually the other German Shepherd in the neighborhood, which is funny. But yeah, it's great. I gave this a 4-star, like I said. All these books have been super enjoyable. I think they've all been 4 to 5 stars. There may have been a 3-star in there. I can't remember, but just fun little short novellas, super quick reads. And they're just, I really enjoy following these characters and getting to know more about their stories. So yeah, that's it. That's my July wrap up, guys. That's where we're at. And I guess that's all I gotta say. That's it. If you like this video, subscribe, like, do the things. I don't know what else to say. It's been a while since I've done a wrap up, so hopefully it went well. Hopefully you guys liked, I don't know. If you've read any of these books before, leave comments down below. Tell me what you thought. If any of these sound interesting, leave comments down below. Tell me what you thought. If you have anything to say, leave comment down below. Tell me what you thought. I would love to talk with you all in the comments. And I will hopefully see you in my next video. Bye, guys.